Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back to the program. It's 9:07, and we have more than a full house today. We have more people than we have mics today, so we'll have to do a little bit of mic sharing. But I'm pleased to be joined in studio by some members of the Penny Power Coalition. We have former Mayor Dwayne Evenson. We also have Mary Meloranio. I got it right. We also have Mary Silvernail to talk about the county side of things, and also Josh McGrath. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. And why don't we just first start off by I'm sure most people listening have been here longer than I have and know all about the 1% tax. But for those that don't know, I mean, how did this get started? And whoever feels like they're the best suited to answer any question can just chime in at any time. So go ahead, and
I'll defer to Dwayne on that
one. Okay.
I believe that what happened was back in the early 70s someplace that the state legislature passed that state law that said that local communities and counties could have an additional 1% sales tax. And they could vote on that every 4 years to have that included into their taxing authority. And so that's how it got started. And in 1976 was the first year that it came to a vote in the city that it passed. And ever since 1976, it's passed every 4 years because the citizens are allowed to vote on that.
And it's an optional tax, and of course it goes on to it's a sale on anything that has sales tax that gets added to, right?
That's correct. Anything that has a sales tax to it, there's an additional 1%.
Okay,
that's added to it.
And of course it comes up for a vote every 4 years, which means it will be up for a vote coming up in November.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never really been very close either, has it? I have the numbers up until 2002. I mean, I have the sheet. The sheet that I have is a one from before. But I mean, the lowest I can find is 61%, and that was in 1986. Mm-hmm. So it's been fairly uncontroversial. And
I don't know if it's ever not controversial. I think people, anytime you hear the word tax, people are always a little leery of it, especially here in Wyoming. But I think the voters have always been pleased with what it's been used for, and so they've reelected the tax, so to speak. And so certainly I would never say that it's not close or not people aren't worried about it, but I think it's just been so hugely beneficial to Campbell County that people realize what it has done. Even those that are new, they realize that, or they hopefully get informed on it, which is sort of what we're here to do today, and so they reelect it.
Well, yeah, and now for those that aren't familiar with the projects that this the 1% tax funds, I mean, what kind of stuff is this used for?
Go ahead, Mary.
The projects traditionally include upgrades to the water system, fire and law enforcement equipment, sidewalks, bike paths, street and road improvements, the senior center, or senior citizens and youth programs and activities, parks and beautification efforts, human services improvements, and service district projects, including wastewater and drainage enhancements, and also economic development.
Yeah, so I mean it's mostly infrastructure type spending, yes. But I mean there are some other programs, and at least the understanding that I have of how it works is that if there's any kind of a project that somebody might want to use those funds for, they can apply to the county or the city for it.
Well, both now. At
both?
One time it was just a city tax, and then it became a county. It might have been always a county tax. I'm getting it mixed up with the lodging tax, but it's always been a county tax. a 1% county tax.
Okay, so groups that have a project that they might want the funds, they can just apply to the county then.
Well, I don't know how the county works for sure. I can tell you from the city's perspective that the city puts out a survey and has since, I believe, 1976 every year. And on that you're asked to rate what you think are the most important projects or infrastructure projects that needs to be completed or maintained. And roads and streets have been in the top 3 forever. But it's not necessarily, if it's not on that survey for 1% and the people don't approve that, the city does not spend any money, any 1% money, on any project that is not voted on by the public in that survey that comes back and says we're okay with spending 1% money on that. And the city has been avid in doing that for as long as I can remember.
Oh, okay. And actually, I got my survey in the mail the other day, so I assume they're probably, if you haven't gotten one, pretty much everybody will get one fairly soon.
Right.
And so the survey is really a big part of how you determine where that money goes on the city side.
Right. And I think you also can go to the city webpage and take the survey on the webpage also.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it even simpler. You don't have to spring for a stamp.
One of the things that I would like to follow up with when Josh was talking about the tax is that since 1976, that the citizens of Campbell County have always been able to vote on the 1% tax. Now there is an amendment at the state legislature that says that if the city council and the county commissioners vote that they want to make that a permanent tax, they have the right to do that. And the good leadership that we've had in Campbell County and the city of Gillette since 1976 it's always been a debate, I won't deny that, but the great leadership that we've had has always said, this is a tax that we want to make sure that the people want to support, and so it has always been voted on. And obviously I think we're agreeing somewhere around 65 to 70% is an average that it passes by. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to remember is that the city and the county could make it a permanent tax, but have chosen not to do that and leave that in the hands of the community, which I think is absolutely the right thing to do.
Well,
And there are several counties in Wyoming who have made it a permanent tax.
oh, actually, I was just about to ask if there were any other county, because I mean I've seen signs for 1% tax in a few other counties. I know Park County it's up for, I think it's up this year in Park County as well. I mean, do you know which counties are that have it permanent or?
Off the top of my head, I do not. I know last 4 years ago when it was up for re-election, there was, if I recall, 6 or 7, I think, that were a permanent tax. And again, I think it's the right thing to do to put it up for re-election. Obviously, I hope that if you look around the community and all the great things that we have, that it has been used for, that it gets reelected.
Well, and I think it's been kind of a good forward-looking attitude that the city and the county have had to at least allow the public to weigh in on it. And I mean, things right now, I mean, things are going pretty well, but I mean, I would understand, maybe 4 years from now, the economy might not be as good, and then obviously you would get a chance to look at it again. So it seems like that's a pretty good system to go with. To go, every 4 years, just reconsider it again.
And I think the thing to remember is that it's, when you're talking about that and you talk about tax, it's a fair tax. I know they asked the county commissioners, the League of Women Voters asked the county commissioners, and it was in the paper the other day. It is a fair tax in terms of everybody pays it, whether you're a visitor to Gillette or you're a permanent resident, whether you live in the county, whether you live in the city. It's on your sales tax, so that part is picked up by everybody who comes through Campbell County when they buy goods in Campbell County.
Well, and consumption taxes are generally considered a little bit more even-handed than income taxes or property taxes or something like that. if a county, I mean, where I grew up and lived for most of my life, property taxes paid for most of this kind of stuff. There were no county or city sales taxes, so property taxes paid for everything. And all of the visitors that go through and use the services and use the roads don't contribute anything. So this is a good system, especially for a city that's based on a major interstate highway. A lot of visitors come through here.
And certainly this helps then to keep your property tax down, because Campbell County, and I might defer to Dwayne on this, but we do not assess all. They have the ability, every county has the ability to assess, I think, 12 mills. And right now, Campbell County does not assess all 12 mills. And if they did, your property taxes would go up, all those kinds of things. And they're able to keep those taxes down because of the other supplemental income that comes from the penny tax.
Yeah, I think Campbell County's at like 11.4 or something like that, or it's somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's closer to 11.2 or 11.1.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference because I believe a mill is worth like $5.5 million. So it's 1/10 to 2/10 makes a big difference on what the revenue that the county gets. But it's Josh is absolutely right. They legally can have 12 mills. So.
And Mary Silvernell here. Well, we have. Sorry, you have to share mics over there.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that Josh is exactly right. When you think about all of the workers that are staying in our hotels right now too, that is a way that we can also get that 1% tax money from those folks that are here for extended periods of time, who of course aren't going to own property and pay those taxes as a property owner. So to think about it as whenever we have those huge RV rallies at Camplex as an example, and those folks are staying around town for anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks, they're buying a lot of goods, and so they are definitely contributing to the receipts of those 1% tax monies that we receive.
Well, and all you need to do is go over by the hotels, all that cluster of hotels over by exit 124, and just look at all the Colorado and North Dakota and South Dakota tags, and they're all contributing to the tax base.
Exactly. So I think that's a good point when we're considering the 1% tax as to who else pays for that for us.
Oh, and just personally, I've always been kind of a proponent of any consumption-based taxes, just because, again, it kind of spreads things out in a bit more fair manner and doesn't get everybody all going after each other. So, I mean, how much does in a year? I mean, how much does the 1% tax generally raise for the city or the county or both?
I cannot speak to what it does for the county, but for the city, I believe that this year it's going to raise somewhere around $23 million, and that's what the budget for the 1% is at the city, and it has been approved. And so I'm when I was in office, it was running somewhere around 18 to 20 million, and since I left office, everything's blossomed and grown and become a larger community and more sales tax. And so it's increased to about 23 million. The other thing that I'd like to add is that we have to remember that we pay this as individuals when we purchase things, but the oil and gas business and the coal industry also, help pay a ton of this money. And so when we look at it, really, when we're in Campbell County, we are blessed to have probably the least amount of taxes in the state. And that's because we have such big industry here. The oil and gas and again, the coal industry, they pay the lying share of most taxes that happen in Campbell County. And it's not, the individuals are paying it, don't get me wrong, but the bulk of the money is coming from industry that's here and the people that travel in and out of town and stay here and work permanently. So we always have to remember that, and I think Josh alluded to that with workers that come in and Mary that stay in the hotels. It's not just you and I that are paying this tax. It's everybody that's paying this thing.
But pretty much anybody that passes through town.
Right.
Which, again, is not a bad deal to have the lowest taxes in a state that's known for low taxes.
Well, the other thing that most people don't recognize, and the only reason I do is because I served, is that the state has a 4% sales tax. then the cities and counties are allowed 1% and additional 1%. So cities and counties can actually have a 2% sales tax, which Gillette does now because the additional 1% is going to the Madison. Well, what the state legislature looks at, and when you're down there asking for state grants and state money, they look and see if you're taxing at your maximum, if the county and the city is taxing at their maximum levels. And if they're not, it always gives the state legislature and those that are providing the grant money the opportunity to say, listen, why should anybody else in the state pay for a project that's going on in Campbell County if you're not even taxing your people and they don't want to be taxed for it? And so if by approving the 1%, it has helped tremendously at the city and the county level to go down there and get grant money, leverage your local tax money against that grant money. It would be interesting to see how much grant money that the city of Gillette and the county has brought back because of the 1%.
Well, and I guess the other thing to consider there would be that with the amount of taxes that that are raised around here. I mean, this is one of the larger counties in the state. All of that money stays here as well. I mean, this isn't paying for projects in Sublette County or somewhere that's much smaller. That's
a great point. And I also think you don't want to confuse it with the capital's facility tax that has been passed several times over, whether it was, for different projects in Campbell County. And that is a sunset tax, so to speak, in that when the money that they told you they needed to raise, $17 million or whatever, is raised, i.e. the Madison Water Project, that tax goes away. By state statute, it's required to go away. The college building was built with, it was funded partially, by that. The Wyoming Center was funded partially by the capital's facility tax. So this is a different tax in that, and it's used for different projects. It's like 20 to 25% of Wright's operating budget comes from the penny power tax. So when you're talking a quarter of your budget is from that, the Senior Center, Yes House, GARF, all these nonprofit agencies that apply, that they do go to the city and to the county for funds, they're able to get those funds. Those funds have to come from somewhere. So if this doesn't exist, they still have to come from somewhere. But now, again, we're going to go back to that. Your tax base is going to go up. Right. And again, that would require raising property taxes. Exactly. So I guess, and of course, I mean, I didn't know it was 25% of the budget for Wright. Now, 20%. 20%, which is still a big chunk. And Wright is in a period right now where things are so busy down there that you can't even find a place to live in Wright. So they're in a position where losing that funding would put them in a really bad position. No doubt. And just as it would put the rest of Campbell County, it would put Gillette in a tough position if you lose. I'll go back to what Dwayne said earlier. You lose $23 million in a year. There's a lot of social service agencies, a lot of roads, a lot of bike paths, a lot of stuff that's been used by the penny tax that because we live in Campbell County, we get to enjoy those things, and our kids get to enjoy those things, and our kids' kids have gotten to. I commend all those that came before us, who built Camplex. Whether you agree with or disagree with certain things, they have brought a quality of life to Gillette that otherwise wouldn't have existed without it. Well, and I mean, I've talked to a lot of people that have passed through here. They're just surprised for the size of Gillette and how remote it is from other large cities. The quality of our facilities here, it really is, and it's a testament to the people of the county that have voted for this over the years. I agree. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a short break and we'll come back and talk a little bit more about some of the specifics, okay?
Sure. I would just like to say to your listeners that I would certainly like to hear from your listeners and see what they think and what their opinion of the 1% is, and if there's any questions that we could help them answer.
Oh, absolutely. So if you have any questions, give us a call right after the break at 682-1270, 682-1270. But right now we have to pay some bills. We'll be right back. News Talk 1270 KIML.
We promise no more soccer talk until 2018. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back to the program. It's 9:33, and if you're just joining us, we're talking with Dwayne Evenson, Mary Meloranio, Mary Silvernell, and Josh McGrath about the 1% tax. And we talked in the last break a little bit about the history and how much money it raises. And, of course, if anybody has any questions or comments, you can call in anytime. 682-1270. 682-1270 is the number. Why don't we kind of backtrack a little bit? And I think and this is one of the things we talked about during the break. I think one of the important things to remember about this is that it is something that stays right here in the county, and it provides a lot of really important services. I mean, we mentioned the Yes House and Garf and a lot of other services, but it's also mostly infrastructure stuff.
There is an awful lot of infrastructure that gets built with the 1%, and that is, again, it goes back to, at least from the city's perspective, the survey that they maintain, and I would imagine it probably is pretty much mirrored over on the county side. But everybody wants better roads, take better care of the potholes, do this and do that with your transportation and your roads, and the city has always done a very good job with that. Back in history, a few years ago, we spent $25 million on new road projects. And most of that money, not all of it, but most of that money either came from the federal level that we seek grants for or came from the 1% and state money. And it was just one of those things that because we were doing the things that were right for our community at the time, that the people were supporting the 1%, and we were building roads just like mad. And as a result of that, and the city council and the county continue to do that, because with Northern Drive and the outer drives that they have now that surround the city, it's just been a wonderful project, and the people listen to that. And so when they read the survey and they fill that out, and then they see, the other thing that the city and the county does is they have those 1% sales tax project signs. And so when you see one of those, stop and read it. You can't read it when you're driving by because they're not large enough. But if you stop and read it, it'll tell you how much money they're spending on that particular project. And those are projects that enhance the community and make the quality of life here in Gillette much better.
Well, and I'm sure we've all seen. I mean, I see them all over the place. But and I think that's also the transparency of that. Being able to see that sign that tells you exactly how much was spent. It's also a good practice to kind of keep everybody in the loop of knowing where that money goes.
Plus, I think it's educational in and of the fact that we all know that Gillette, has an influx of new people every year. I mean, and so every 4 years when this comes up for re-election, there's a whole group of new people that, often you'll hear in Gillette, man, I was only going to be here 2 years and then I was leaving, and that was in 1988 or that was in 1994. And you'll hear that over and over in our community. And that's a testament to the people that live here, that they want to make Gillette, they ultimately want to make Gillette their home. And, the first year you came because of the job, the second year you stayed because the money was good, and the third year I think you can't leave because of the people. And I truly believe that about Gillette. And in doing so those signs help to educate people around the community of what that penny power tax has done and paid for, and allow Gillette to continue to grow, like your bike paths. And again, I'll go back to even the senior center, the funding that it's helped there.
Oh yeah, and it really is. I mean, everybody's seen the signs all over town. I mean, it's pretty pretty obvious that the money's being used for good projects. I think we might have a question here. Let's go to the phones. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Hello. I was calling because I had some comments and some thoughts to share on taxes with you.
Sure, what's up?
I suppose I probably have a bit of a outsider's perspective because I was born and raised in Chicago. I lived half my life in Illinois, and I've lived half my life in Montana. I live in Montana now, but I sometimes work here in Gillette. And, we in Montana, we've been debating on again, off again, implementation of a statewide general sales tax. And some of the objections that the general populace has voiced in Montana is that we want certain protections, like no new taxes without being put to a vote of the people or a supermajority vote in the state legislature. No increases in taxes without putting it to a vote of the people or a supermajority vote in the state legislature. And personally, I believe that there are certain things that should never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, be taxed, such as prescription drugs, groceries, guns and ammunition, because they're in the Constitution and we have the right to bear arms, and certain things like that should be excluded from any general sales tax. I consider myself a very conservative person politically, and usually I normally vote against a tax. However, I vote against taxes not because I'm against taxation, but because I'm against the wasteful spending of taxes. And, I disapprove of what goes on in Washington. But I was wondering if some of these things that I mentioned, like groceries, prescription drugs, water, for example, that should never be taxed. Guns and ammunition, are those excluded in your sales taxes here in Wyoming or not? And do you have protections like supermajority vote in your state legislature or your city council, or does it go to a vote to the people to implement new taxes or an increase in the tax?
I'll thank you for the call. I can answer now. This 1% sales tax here is voted on every 4 years by the citizens of each particular county. I'm all for not taxing ammo. By the way, ammo is it's so expensive. But and I don't believe food or prescription medication get taxed in Wyoming either, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and I think most states are like that. There are probably only a handful of states that tax food. I know. I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and food, medication, clothing, none of that stuff was ever taxed. I think there is a tax on clothing, right? Yeah. Clothing is taxed, but food and water and medication are not taxed at all.
Right. And that. Again, ammunition is taxed in the state of Wyoming, and I think that the caller has a really good point. But what has to happen in those situations is I like the idea of a supermajority at the legislature to raise taxes, or it has to be voted on by the people. I think those are good qualities that America should be able to enjoy. But the fact of the matter is that everybody has to be able to give a little and take a little on those situations, or nothing gets happened. I mean, if the caller absolutely refuses to pay taxes on ammunition, he's going to vote no. And, that's what's wrong with our political scene today. And I think Josh had related to that at the break is, either you're too far left or you're too far right, and we can't come together on anything. And we have to be able to sit down as citizens and as normal people to sit down at a table and say, okay, here's what I'm willing to sacrifice. Here's what I'm willing to do. And you don't have to give up your character or what you believe in. You just have to be able to sit down and negotiate and come up with the best deal that you can for everybody concerned, knowing you don't get everything.
Well, and I will say, as a testament to the people of Campbell County, I mean, this has passed every time since 1976. Right. So, and this is I don't know what it was like in 1976, but I imagine it was probably just as conservative, if not more conservative than it is now. I think it's a testament to the people that they see that this is something that is useful, and they voted it in every time.
Well, and I think the city and the county spend it wisely, and I don't think there's any frivolous spending. You may not agree with the the total budget that they both have, but overall, if you look at the city of Gillette since 1976, it's light years ahead of where it would have been without the 1% sales tax. There's just no question about it, and the quality of life that it gives to the young people in our community that have these children in the school district. Listen to what the school district says about kindergartners and first graders and second graders and those graduating. I mean, I believe Josh may be able to answer this or help me through this, but I believe we're 2 grade schools, our elementary schools, behind the time as far as our population is concerned in the next 2 or 3 years that we have to have those for the first graders that we're going to have. And I mean, we just continue to grow, and if we don't have the 1%, and maybe one of the things that we've done is we've learned to rely on the 1%, but okay, so if we've done that, so what? Look what we have to speak to that. And if we don't continue to do that, all these young people that are moving to our community and having these children and having these babies, they're not going to have baseball fields. They're not going to have softball fields. They're not going to have basketball courts. They're not going to have those things that we have to teach our children how to be good quality citizens, and that's just part of the deal.
Well, yeah, and if I remember right, I think I remember seeing something like this coming year. There's going to be 1,000 or 1,100 kids going into first grade alone. I mean, the amount of growth in the young community is just staggering, and without that infrastructure, the quality of life's not going to be there, and people aren't going to stay.
The other part of that is that I would remind the social service agencies that do rely on that money as well. I mean, you can go to the infrastructure side of it, and that's great, but don't forget about the social service agencies and again, the senior center. What a great facility! What a beautiful, gorgeous facility. They do rely on the penny tax quite a bit for their budget every year.
And to touch on what Josh is saying, a lot of what I've heard is the penny power doesn't fund 100% of the social services budgets. They're still fundraising and coming up to make that difference, but the penny power does help them with their budget, and they wouldn't be able. A lot of them won't be able to continue without that part of their budget. But they still are working within their budget, and they are still raising money outside of the penny power.
And that makes a good point, is talking about the social services, because as we talk, most of the time when you talk about growth and economics, it's all about the good things and how much money's coming in and the taxes and all of this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, anytime you have growth in your economics, you're going to have growth in the other side of that equation with crime and drugs and spousal abuse and all those things. So nobody wants to look at that dirty old picture back there, that the social services have to be funded, but they continue to grow at the same rate as everything else does. And so we need more police officers, we need more authorities, we need more judges, we need more volunteers and paid staff that work at GARF or at the Yes House and all of these social services. It's all part of your community, and we just have to make sure that we're there because we do have an obligation to take care of some of those, and we just need to make sure that the money's there to do that.
Well, and the 1% tax money helps pay for some of these projects that otherwise might be taking away from vital services like the police or
Sure.
or judges or county attorneys or any of that kind of stuff.
And there's a great picture that one of our I don't know, friends, colleagues, whatever. There's a great picture of him when the Madison was first done back in the mid 70s, and the water is burnt orange. He's in his swimming pool and the water is burnt orange. It's a great picture, but it goes to show you then, okay, that money was used to develop the Madison the first time, which again it's being used again right now for that same thing. Granted, we have a capital facility tax for that, but the money is going to help that, and it's a great picture to show where we've come from. I know every now and again on Facebook, Joe Lunny posts that Throwback Thursday, and he posts some of the pictures of what Gillette looked like back in 78, 82, 86, and I'd like to think it's a great community. It's come a long way. It's a beautiful community.
Well, and I mean, I've even seen, he's even posted pictures from the early 90s, and there were still a lot of dirt roads even that recently. And, you know, a lot of these good roads that we have now were funded by the 1% tax. We only have a couple minutes left, and if anybody has any questions or comments, we still have the phone lines open, 682-1270, 682-1270. Why don't we just kind of wrap things up, just a little short, maybe 2 minute closing statement here.
I would tell you, if anybody wants to have the discussion on what the penny tax has done in Gillette in 40 years, I would love to have that opportunity to discuss that with you. I think anybody sitting in here and that's on the pack would love to have the opportunity just to talk to you or anybody that you may know of what it has done for Gillette and how it has allowed Gillette to continue to grow and thrive. And that's why it's necessary that we, hopefully can reelect it.
Well, and I'm sure we'll probably do this again before the election comes up. We have about a minute left, so let's take a call real quick. News Talk 1270, you're on the air.
Hi. I see a lot of the signs around town that say vote no on the 1% sales tax, and I'm wondering who is supporting this, who's putting up these signs?
We don't know, and
that is true.
And good for them for voicing their opinion. Obviously, we're on the other side of that, of certainly being in support of it, but we're not real sure who that is. And again, if they'd like to have the discussion, we'd be open and willing to have that with them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's an organized group behind it or anything. I think it's just maybe a few people that are doing that. But I mean, I've seen a couple. I haven't seen a lot of them, but I've seen a couple.
I agree with Josh. I think that they have the right to have those signs out there. I just think that if you're going to make a public statement, that you should have the courage to either put your name or something on there that's recognizable. But I also say that from the perspective of those that are running for elected office, you don't see any of those signs out there for any of those that are running for elected office that says, I support the 1% sales tax. Or, I support anything. It's just vote for, and it gives you a name. And I think that they're losing an opportunity to tell people what they stand for. And so it works both ways. I think those that have the no signs, they have a right to that. But I think that there should be a way that it's recognizable, so we can talk to those people and ask them. They have their own opinions as to why we shouldn't be doing it. Why would you just put a sign up to say no?
Well, and if you want to have the discussion, the more discussion, the better when it comes to these sort of things. But if you don't know who to have the discussion with, it kind of does put a stick in the spokes of the whole thing.
But I would encourage you to ask the candidates, and I think from what I understand, I didn't listen on Monday night, but it sounds to me like they're asking that question if the candidates support the 1% or not. But also, just when you go to those things, remember anybody can say anything. If they have a track record, I'd go back and check their voting record.
Well, there you go. And with that, we're going to have to wrap things up. I want to thank again Dwayne Evenson, Mary Melaronio, and Mary Silvernell, and Josh McGrath. Did I get it? Did I
Close enough.
Melaronio?
Melaronio.
Oh, I got it right twice out of 3 times. But I want to thank you all for stopping by, and hopefully we'll get a chance to have this discussion again sometime soon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Don.
And with that, we're out of time. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock sharp. Stay tuned for Rush.
The #1 talk show in Northeast Wyoming. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.